You're listening to the Sass Says podcast. I'm your host, Christy Rocha, also known as Sass. I identify as a woman, a wife, and a mother. That should tell you a lot already. And over the last few years, I've learned the value of talk therapy. I have seen how my inner work not only enhances my own well-being, but also my marriage, my parenting, my relationships. And in fact, you wouldn't be hearing this right now if it weren't for the work I've done. My mission is to debunk the misconceptions and stigmas around what therapy is and who it's for. Let's normalize working on our mental health and seeking help when needed. We've all heard of self-care, self-help, and self-love, but do you often wonder how to actually make it all happen? I do. You'll hear strategy-based conversations with professionals, as well as inspiring and validating stories from women who are just like you and me. Think of this podcast as the weekly therapy sessions you didn't know you needed, with a dash of sass, a lot of vulnerability, and me, relentlessly asking, but how? Hello, hello, hello. My guest today is Sarah Dalton, founder of Your Simply Big Life, creator of the Peace and Productivity Planner, host of the Peace and Productivity podcast, and mom of four. The Simply Big Life community is the perfect blend of mindset, heart, and practical tools to help you design a life you love on your terms. Sarah believes life is meant to be lived with intention and that we can have both peace and productivity when we are clear on what it is we truly want. Boom. All right, so Sarah takes us through her step-by-step process for taking back your power when it comes to your house, your life, your routines. If you're feeling bogged down by daily tasks, this is for you. If you're feeling like you need a little check-in, just a couple of tweaks, this could help you too. Sarah talks about identifying your core values, how often to check in on your routines, how to create those routines and rhythms that work for your family, and working in alignment rather than seeking perfection. This was and still is a much needed episode for me, and I know it will be for you too. Here's Sarah. Hey, Sarah. Thank you so much for being here. It's so good to see you.
Hello, thanks for having me.
You are just, you're very relevant in my life right now. And I was just unloading on you before hitting record about all of the chaos, not only in my house, but in my brain, really is
Yes,
what it is.
so real, so relatable. I mean,
Yeah.
all the things.
All
Yes.
right. So quickly just share where you are, how many kids you have, and what you were doing before you started your platform and your business.
Yeah, so I am in the Midwest, and that is where I grew up. So back here, literally, actually, in the city that I grew up in, which wasn't the plan, but it's cool, and it's we're happy and excited to raise our kids here. So that's that. So two kids. I have a 10-year-old son, 8-year-old daughter, and then two older stepsons as well. So we are a blended family, and that's a whole other podcast
I'm sure.
conversation, right?
Yep.
And yeah, so what I was doing before the business, so I was just hanging out. I was a stay-at-home mom, not hanging out because that is not what stay-at-home moms do. I was just doing, nothing. No, I was doing all the things at home, and when they were little, I realized pretty quickly that there was that I wanted something of my own. I will say that. And because we were in the thick of it when they were, so 2 and 4 for you, right?
Hmm.
When they were around that age, after I had kind of come out of like the baby phase, and that was just sort of like a blank, and it just went by really fast. And then I was like, oh, okay, I would like to kind of see, so I dabbled in like network marketing, different direct sales things, and just trying to find something that I could almost like there was a gap that I was trying to fill. And at that same time, around the house, and I was just trying to organize and reorganize and create all the structure that I thought was what I needed, because I was going through, and it kind of all connects. Like I was definitely with between our family, our situation, all the things. It was a really hard time in my life, just personally.
Mm-hmm.
So between being a new mom, a new wife, a stepmom, all the things, I was trying to figure it out. And I kept trying to buy a new planner and reorganize the cabinets because that would make me feel better, right? That would, quote in quotes, like fix the problem.
Right.
So literally that was the direction I took for a really long time before I started realizing it was definitely more of an inside issue, a problem, not problem, an inside thing that I couldn't fix with an outside solution, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get that. So
Yes.
that's where it was. And then it kind of evolved. I started working with a life coach, and the thing doing that, she introduced me to core values, which I know we're going to talk about. And
Mm-hmm.
it was just sort of my first introduction into personal development, and realizing that I had way more power than I thought I did, because I
Mm-hmm.
was kind of stuck in that mode of like a victim mentality, and my life's so hard, and it never gets better, and all those things. So it was that, combined with still feeling like I wanted something of my own,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of came together. And eventually I created the planner, because in my search for the perfect planner, I couldn't find one. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll do that. And it just evolved from there to where it became a community. It became so much more just than just a planner. To where now I'm helping moms now with the podcast, Peace and Productivity, and just kind of finding that balance, finding that alignment, whatever you want to call it, and being able to live our best life as moms is
Mm-hmm.
where I'm at now.
Okay. All right. And I guess where so you worked with a life coach. Like, where did you learn best practices? Where did you learn, how to, give a step 1, 2, 3, 4? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
Yeah.
one thing to sort of develop it for yourself. And I think a lot of people do that and don't even really realize it, but to really put it on paper
Hmm.
is a whole other skill.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a good question. And I feel like it was a lot of trial and error. And the
Okay.
more I was talking to other moms and kind of saying, again, you're right, because it really took me, I had always been, if I look back, right, sort of a generally organized person, I would say. It was very specific to me. I'm a 7 on the Enneagram. I think if you know what kind of what that,
I'm
it's
not well
not
versed.
not known for like structure and type A. Like that's not me. So it's an interesting, like the more I got to know myself, the more I was able to sort of create the flow and the systems and the rhythms for myself, my self-care, my family, that fit for us.
Hmm.
And the more I found the ones that worked for me, I realized, well, it's not a one size fits all. It's not even as I started to talk to more moms and wanting to help more moms create that feeling for themselves, I realized it's not a do ABCD and you'll be great and you'll be organized and feel great. It's more, this is the approach, this is more of the
Mm.
mindset, right? So at least I can share that, and this is what worked for me. And not getting out of that hustle mentality, getting out, going more towards really knowing your energy and where are you at. So I come at time management, I feel like it's very different than a lot of productivity experts out there, or, that traditional time blocking and everything in its place. It's more so, is that working for you? Has it been working for you? And let's find a different solution, let's get creative.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're gonna get all into the
Mhm.
mindset and the approach. And I just, you know, my red flags for me are going off because what I'm feeling is intellectually everything you just said makes perfect sense. But emotionally, I want you to just tell me what to do.
Right. Yeah.
And I know now for me that means I have work to do somewhere, because
Mm.
in every other area of my life where I've just wanted someone to hand me the silver platter of here's step 1, 2, 3, 4, do this and you're good.
Right.
That never works.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's usually those areas that I have to go, all right, I gotta look into this, because I'm
Right.
literally sitting here nodding like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. I never would have thought about that. And then the other part of my brain is like, oh my God, but like,
So
can
much
you
work.
just tell me what to do?
Uh-huh.
Even today,
Yes.
I was listening to your some of your summer series and I was like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, that part's not gonna work, but this might. And then it's exactly that, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
it's the cherry picking of what works, what doesn't, and you know, not
Totally.
unfortunately I don't wanna.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's so much. You're so right. That's a really good point because I think that's a barrier, right? That's another thing where we can stay stuck in and thinking even I mean the thing that's coming to mind is this idea of like trying to lose weight, right? We want somebody and like going on a diet. And
Mhm.
because that's safe, again, I'm keep doing air quotes and nobody can see me, but like that's the safe, that's the known, that's the step by step. And
Mhm.
again, and it's sort of it is taking away and I guess this is a really good point as you bring it's kind of taking away our power at the same time,
Yeah.
right? And saying and it's giving that up and saying, well, I don't have the answers. And that really it kind of leaves us with a little bit less confidence in
Mhm.
the fact that we can figure it out for our family.
Yeah.
And it will take time, but you can figure it out, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the confidence will come later
Yeah.
when, you look back at the road to get there
Hmm.
and say, "Oh, I actually did that and I did it intentionally."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. So
exactly.
so all right. So get into it a little because now you and I are just having a conversation for me,
Yeah.
which is what my show is. But I
Love
want to
it.
help everyone, get some context around this.
Mhm.
Um, where do we start? Where do we start? Okay, go. Where do we start?
Love it. So I would say, and this is again, the big thing for me was just gaining the clarity. So I would say the first step is getting the clarity on priorities. And
Okay.
when I talk about priorities, it's the big picture priorities, like life priorities, right?
Mhm.
And then you can break it down and get to, okay, today, this is my priority, right? But the big picture, and that's where the core values come in. So
Mhm.
for me, that was like I said, that was my first step, and it really opened that door for me to realize this is who I am, this is what matters to me. So it only made sense then that I design everything else the way I do, take care of my home, the way I nurture my marriage, the way I parent around those core values because that's
Mhm.
who I am.
Mhm.
So it's the way that I look at it. And there's so many, it's cool because I hear more of the conversation around core values happening. And so there's personal core values, and this is what I'm talking about. And then there's family core values, right? Business for your business have core values, but it's really just that your fundamental beliefs and the guiding principles. So you could think of it, some people I've heard like a North Star or just sort of the thing that you can come back to. And I like to say it's the foundation. So, like I said, to build out from there when you're talking about goals, when you're talking about vision, when you're talking about your to do list, if you can start and build on your core values as that foundation, it's really a game changer. It's
Yeah.
because it's taking away a lot of that decision fatigue and that confusion because you've already done that work on the front end.
Mhm.
And then the filter, again, with that, it's more you can truly bring them into your day. And I know we're going to talk about that too, but when I think about the different areas of my life, my marriage, like I said, my parenting, my business, how I take care of my home, my family, my friends, I like to use my core values and use those as a filter. So simplicity, peace, freedom, growth, and take each one of them and say, in my marriage, am I keeping it simple? Am I
Mhm.
feeling peaceful? Am I feeling free? Right? And how can I and we're not looking for perfection, we're not looking for perfect, we're looking because that doesn't exist for more alignment. Because
Mhm.
when we start to feel that overwhelm, when we start to feel that when you can feel it, and I like personally I like the term balance. To me, that makes sense. It doesn't, you know, and but you can use whatever word you want. And it's with values, right? When you're feeling in alignment with those values, that's to me, that's a balanced life.
Okay. Okay. So I want to just clarify here. Your personal core values are freedom, simplicity, and peace.
Freedom, simplicity, peace, growth, and integrity.
Oh,
I
oh,
personally do top 5 core
okay.
values. And you
Okay.
can, again, make it your own if 3 feels better.
And are these things that you like found on a list and picked 5 from, or
Right.
where do we find them?
Pretty much.
Okay.
So yeah, so I have the process that I go through. There are, and you could literally just Google core values list, and there's all different types. I think James Clear actually has a pretty good, like, robust list of core values. Um, and from there, it's you can what I like to do, what I do, and I actually do this not necessarily now, not necessarily every season, but fairly often is to just revisit and go through. But when you're first starting out, looking at the list, going through, and this is where again I want to really encourage the women listening, the people listening, to come back to this trust in ourselves, in our intuition, in our truth.
Mhm,
Because when you're going through that list, it's going to be really easy to be like, oh, well, this should be a core value.
mhm,
So really, when you're going through it, try to get in a spot where you're not going to be distracted, where you can be just kind of focused in and really connecting into, really at this point, the first pass through the list is what stands out to you.
mhm.
What stands out, because I think that's going to be your gut, your instinct, your first instinct. So go through, and you can do this either way, right? You go through and highlight all the ones that stand out, and
Mhm.
that's probably going to be a lot.
Yeah.
And then go back through,
Mhm,
and maybe you don't want to highlight first, circle, underline, however the passes through makes sense for you, and then circle the ones, the second pass, that may even stand out from the ones you highlighted, right?
mhm.
And then do it again, and maybe I do 2 to 3 passes, to where ideally you're going to come away with top 5 core values.
Mhm, mhm,
And these really, there's no right or wrong. Like I said, the shoulds are going to be strong, because it's either, a lot of us, right, from, oh, this was a value that I had growing up, and my family of origin, right, had this value.
mhm,
So doing our best and really being honest with ourselves. And just another way to think about it too is, what are some of the things that get you really, really excited in life, and on the flip side also, and that make you feel your best, right?
mhm,
So like for peace, simplicity, I mean that is just when all the different areas, when my home is in order, when my mind is clear, when I don't feel like there's tension in my marriage, or my right, when I'm just a peaceful parent. Those are all things that are so important to me. Clear
mhm,
spaces. And for some people, that's not as important, right? Maybe they like that thrill or that adventure, the more fullness, the whatever that is. So like adventure is another core value.
mhm.
um and so really at this point too, I like to just point out that it's not, I think a lot of us, especially as moms, will say, well, faith, family, right, health, yes, these are all super important. I personally will call those my life buckets. Those
Okay.
are, so that's kind of how I kind of separate the two things, because then I filter, like I said, the core values, and I take my buckets and my life categories, and I make sure those are in alignment.
Okay. All right. So here's something okay. So personally, what's coming to me, and just as you were talking about peace and having clear mind, clear spaces, clear all the things,
Mhm.
like how do I marry what I think I want? Because those things are things that I want, and I would have normally, in a past life, I lived by those with what might be possible, or not as possible right now. Like I'm getting at, just the idea of clear spaces. I am the person that I cannot sit down to work at a messy desk. I have a hard time sitting down to relax and watch TV at night. If the kitchen is a mess, if there's toys on the floor, like clear spaces is important to me, but I need help sometimes, you know, finding the line, right? Like, because I have a
Yes.
2 and 4-year-old
Yep.
and it's like, you know what? Am I going to spend my life cleaning spaces?
Hmm.
Because that's not really what I want. I want
Yeah.
the clear space
Hmm.
so badly. I want it. But it's like, I kid you not, I vacuum our family room every day. Every
Yeah.
day I vacuum our family room. It's like,
Yeah.
how do I bring those two, like, how do I bring the desire with the reality together? Do you know what I'm saying?
100%. Such a good question. And the first thing that's coming up for me is knowing and embracing our season. And
Yeah,
I feel like that's something that we hear and we're like,
I
yeah,
know.
I know, and so embracing the season we're in, right? There's the season with little kids, and that it just is what it is. And at this time, like we're heading into summer, and I know when my kids are home all day, the house is totally different
Yeah.
because I can't, and when they're at school and I'm able to like have like a few minutes where everything's clear and the counters are clear. And and so I guess more so it's really, this is where also when you once you get your core values, kind of this is the five that feel good. The next step is to define those for you in this season,
Okay.
right? And
Yeah.
what can that real, because you do have to marry the two. You
Yeah.
do. Your reality with what's that desire. And it's less, I guess, than the actual physical countertops being clear, but how do you feel when
Yeah.
you walk into your home, right? And that peaceful feeling of, well, maybe you're spending that extra time cuddling with your kids and putting them to bed, and that's that peaceful free, you're free from the mental load, right?
Hmm.
So it's just, and it's figuring that out. It's letting go. I know, again, all these things that I feel like we hear, and it's just so much harder to do, to actually do in real life. But if we can, it's that mindset piece behind it too. It's
Yeah.
not striving for perfect alignment,
Yeah.
and knowing what that is for you, right? What
Yeah.
that means.
Yeah. You know what it's making me think of? So, and I don't know, you'll have to tell me, but so much of what I've heard from you, when I hear it, I immediately relate it to my home. I just
Yeah.
connect productivity with my
Mhm.
home because I think it is the area that I always feel like I'm chasing.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the first thing. But what I'm now connecting is that over, the last year or so, I've really tried to prioritize myself and my self-care. And I was giving an interview. This is funny how life is. I was giving an interview where I was saying how I've completely changed my mindset on getting my mail every day. It was a chore and now it is an opportunity to get outside. And
Hmm.
sometimes when I need to break up the day or switch from one task to the other, or if I've been in front of a screen for too long, I will say, "Hey, why don't I go get the mail?" And I'll jump up and down and it's a great exciting thing. And it's funny that I don't yet do that when it comes to my home. I don't I have not taken the steps to reframe what's happening in my home, and it's so I'm
Yeah.
picturing at the end of the day, the cleanup, it's like I've gotten to a point where I don't insist on every room being tidy before I can relax because that used to be the way.
Mhm.
Like I will leave the playroom to its own devices, right? But I'll still walk by it and go, ugh. And it's like
Mhm.
the what I'm hearing you say is the mindset shift of when I walk by the playroom, instead of going, ah, it's that was 15 minutes that I did doing something else, or you know what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
I have to start looking at my house like I do the mailbox or
Yeah.
the
No,
walk to the mailbox. You know what I'm saying?
I love that. Yeah. And I think too, in this season when you were talking, it kind of uh sparked this thought of like, well, also kind of choose, like you mentioned, your desk. It's
Yeah.
also like this spaces that you are in control of. If right, if you can keep your desk and just really honoring that, and also, and whatever it is, kind of picking those priorities
Mhm.
truly. What is the top priority, and that will help me to relax,
Yeah.
and and not having, and again, then doing that and getting the rhythms around those things, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's resetting your desk for work every day, and for me it's for sure the kitchen, making sure at least.
The kitchen is brutal, man.
It is, and I will say I do have my husband that we've created the rhythm when he's home, that he helps out with the evening situation, and then I kind of do the morning situation as far as like dishes and all that. But knowing for yourself what's going to set you up, and then as much as possible letting go of the
Yeah,
other things in
I
this
know.
season, right? It's not
I
forever.
know. I know. I know. All right. I know. Okay. So is you touched on it, and I want to ask you if there's anything more you want to say on the life buckets.
Yeah, so I guess just the clarity around, for me, it was like when I'm talking about setting goals or creating a vision, it's helpful for me to think in categories. That's just how my brain works,
Mhm.
sorting things and organizing things, right?
That
So
makes sense.
it does make sense.
Yeah.
So really what, and in the same vein, I've kind of, again, everybody does it so differently and approaches time management and goal setting and all the things, which I think is a beautiful thing, because there's so many different types of people and
Mhm.
personalities that need all the different ways. I don't like somebody to give me the categories. I want to look at my life and say, right now in this season, these are my life buckets,
Mhm.
because my marriage, my parenting, my home, my business, right? These are the things that, and not so much for me, it's like, okay, yes, finances, that's usually a main one that people talk about, right? But for me, that's in my business or my home, like I mesh it in. So it's not a bucket for me, right?
Mhm.
Necessarily in this season. That's just an example. So getting clear on, and we talk about too, getting clear on all the things we do. And that's where it can be just doing this brain dump of getting all the things you do, all the roles you play, so that you in life, and every hat you wear, so that you can have the clarity around seeing it all together in one place and saying, wow, first of all, I am amazing and I do a lot. Like,
Right.
give yourself the credit, right?
Right.
And no wonder I'm overwhelmed, because I'm trying to do all the things in all the buckets all the time. Right?
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
so again, when you categorize it and you can say, in this season, I'm really prioritizing my business, because my kid, this was me in the winter this past season, because my kids were in school all day, both of them. And
Mhm.
I took advantage of that, and I was prioritizing my business. And now you better believe I'm feeling the shift
Yeah.
so big time. And it's perfect timing, because they're coming home for the
Mhm.
summer.
Yeah.
So I am really focusing in on my parenting and my
Mhm.
home and my marriage. So
Mhm.
it's just this idea of getting clear, and it helps, I think, again, shift that, the mindset out of all things all the time, and just really, what am I focusing on? And again, it's so much of that practicing, because it's such a practice,
Mhm.
focusing, doing your best in this area, and then really trying to let go in
Mhm.
this season, and not doing things, right? It's not like we don't do things in our business, or we don't, but it's not the focus or the priority.
Yeah. I'm just like, I so badly wish I could literally put file folders in my brain and like
Yeah.
color code them and just pull one out,
Yeah, like,
rip
let's focus
bits,
now.
and then put it back, and then put this
Right.
one in the front. And you know, this can go in the back. I just like
Yeah.
want to be able to do that. All right. And so as far as the seasons go, we're talked about my season of life in
Mhm.
terms of kids. You talk about seasons a little bit more detailed, or a little bit, you really, what is the word I'm looking for? Like, you have your own definition of seasons. Like, what is a season
Yeah.
for you? Because I know you
Yeah.
help us break us our goals down into like periods of time, and
Mhm.
how long is a season?
Yeah. And so I think typically, right, we have the life seasons, and I think they can be hard to name all of them, but I think so there's so many different ways to come at it. But then there's also the physical seasons, which is pretty much, this is where, like in the planner, it's the 90 days, right? It's
Okay.
the 3 months, so the 4 seasons. And it's not directly matched up, it's, but it's basically 90 days starting like January 1st,
So 90
and
days
90
seasons.
days.
Okay.
And I think that's just, in general, it's just so that it's a nice rhythm, a nice check-in point, because it truly is. I've personally found that that's a good, once you kind of set the vision, the goals, the rhythms, my ideal week, I do this every 90 days, because after about 3 months, about 90 days, I'm like, okay, it's time for a refresh. It is
Mm,
time for, right, for me to go in and see what's working and what's not working,
okay.
and where I can tweak. And so it's just in the planner. Like for me, I flipped, when you flip to it, it's just that reminder. It's in my Trello board. This is my 90-day seasonal rhythms. This is what I do and at the same time. And then there's also the life seasons where you could be, it could be where you are taking care of ailing parents, and
Yeah.
that wasn't in the plan, right?
Right.
Or maybe it was, but again, and that could be a season where that is a priority, and everything else, a lot of the other things need to shift and move around. So that's just, and knowing again, when then kids are their own situation too. So it all plays into it. But I think just to keep it simple, right, is to about that 90-day check mark to check back in. And also, if you're starting to feel, another good way to kind of test and see, am I transitioning into a new season, is, are you starting to feel that overwhelm
Mhm.
more than you were, right? Is it, and you don't know where it's coming from. I think if you can identify, okay, well, this is the stress and this is the overwhelm, but if you just start to feel that heaviness and that burden, you're like, what is happening? Then it's time to check back in, right?
Mhm.
And so I would say, yeah, I think that's just a good starting point, and it keeps us connected to our values, and again, to what's working and what's not.
Okay. 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 And
You're so cute. I love
some
it.
honestly, like some episodes I'm like bang, 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 bang. And then some I'm like really like processing in real time for
Yeah,
myself as well as trying to keep it moving.
I love
So
it. It's
um
good.
all right. And you've also touched on your rhythms.
Mhm.
And I think if I hadn't listened to your show, I would think you're just saying rhythms as a lot of us use the word, and no one can
Yes.
see me, but I'm kind of dancing. And that's not, there's more to it than that. So
Yeah.
tell us about rhythms.
Yes. So honestly, this is where, like I mentioned at the beginning, I felt like I was a fairly organized person, but there was like a hitch. There was a something that wasn't working when I would go to plan my weeks, when I would go to write out my to-do list. And I just couldn't figure out what that was. I know now that it was the rhythms that was missing. And really, with rhythms, it's that umbrella term that I use for systems, habits, routines, because truly, when I kind of sat down to think through my process and my system and, my process, how I can kind of translate what I've learned and what's working for me to help women, I was getting caught up in the, well, this is a routine, this is a habit, this is a system. And I so I can keep it simple and keep my peace, I just gave it this umbrella term, rhythms,
Mm-hmm.
because it also lends itself to this, like you were doing that movement. It's the flow, it's
Yeah.
the ease, the flow, creating rhythms, intentional rhythms. And there's a couple different areas, still, many different areas that we create the rhythms: self care, our home maintenance, right, within our business, our relationships. Those are the main ones, I feel like, that I've kind of identified. If I can create rhythms around the things that I am doing on a regular recurring basis,
Mm-hmm.
and they were taking up brain space, I couldn't figure out where to put them, that it was just, and without creating intentional rhythms and making it just a part of what I do, because in that way, when it's a rhythm, you don't necessarily have to, you don't have to rethink it. You don't have to, how am I going to do this? When am I going to do this? You've already created the rhythm and you just do it and you
Mhm.
just go, and your family knows the rhythms. That's the goal. That's the
Mhm.
idea
Mhm.
behind it, because that's where I was getting stuck. Was my life, my day was getting overtaken by the things, the recurring tasks, and that I was doing, every day, every week, cleaning, meal planning, all the things. And they didn't have a home, they didn't have a place to live. And that became my life. And
Yeah.
I think that's what happens oftentimes when you're already feeling overwhelmed. You just do the thing in front of you
Mhm.
without that intentionality behind it. So that's where rhythms came from. And again, it's a process of creating them and redesigning and rechecking in those new seasons. Because, like, for example, I have daily rhythms. We all have rhythms, whether they're intentional or not. That's the thing too, right? Habits, really. So my daily rhythms are, I do like my morning grounding, which is I read, I write, I have my coffee, I ground myself. And that's a non-negotiable daily rhythm for my self-care.
Mhm.
And then in that same, I put that together with, I will then also plan my day. And so a lot of people, this idea of, well, how do you use your planner consistently, and how do you remember to use your planner, and all these things, I put that into my daily grounding rhythm. So it's that idea of, really what it is habit stacking, and
Mhm.
kind of, building on the things that you already do. And coffee is the first thing, and then I just built it out from there. And that took a while, but to
Mhm.
now, to the point where if I don't do my morning grounding routine, something's off. Like, it's
Mhm.
it's weird and I feel it.
Mhm.
And then I do, another one that I do in the morning is an AM reset, where, and this is where, if you, I feel like this was a big one, that kind of that idea, like we were talking about with, just, we like the clear spaces and having the things, this helps me to prepare for my day to go in. I just do, and it usually takes like 30 minutes total, but I do the dishes. I'm already in the kitchen getting the kids, during school time, we're doing breakfast. While they're eating breakfast, I'm making their lunch. And then I'm clearing the dishes from the night before. And again, sometimes there was more and it takes longer, but that's the idea, to clear the kitchen, get the breakfast dishes into the dishwasher, and put the lunch stuff away. And that's the kitchen reset. That's the first part of the AM reset. And then I go upstairs, I gather all the laundry in everybody's room, and I make my bed. And hopefully the idea is to get the kids to make their bed. And then I come down and I put the laundry in as we're walking out the door to the bus. So, and then I also do kind of a sweep for clutter, usually after I come back after the bus. But then that's the AM reset. And that's where I kind of realize the things, what is important to me, to be able to go into my work day or a work block or whatever I'm doing that day with a clear mind. I wanted to get a load of laundry every day. My bed needs to be made for me, and the kitchen needs to be clean, and the clutter needs to at least be out of the living area that I see all the time.
Mhm.
Those were my priorities, and so I packaged them together in my AM reset rhythm.
Mhm. 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 Mhm.
Yeah, that was a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and I just want to, because I know this, and I want to say it again for anyone who maybe didn't catch it. You do laundry every day.
I do.
Yeah.
It took me a while to figure that out, though. I didn't always, and I played around. And this is the other thing with rhythms: play around with it, trial and error, like, be okay with it not working and trying something different. That's huge,
Mhm.
because if you do it once and it doesn't work, don't, and you give up, then that's where I think the overwhelm builds and builds and builds,
Yeah.
because you will find a rhythm that works for you. I
Yeah.
did. So that's so funny you say that, because I was trying to figure out laundry for the longest time.
Mhm.
But I know now sometimes it's not that much long. It's literally, especially if my husband's out of town and it's just, us, I will at least go through and do my habit of checking all the laundry bins at the very least.
Okay.
So I keep that habit going. There's sometimes that I don't actually physically put a load in, and that
Okay.
happens maybe once a week.
Okay.
Um, but I have noticed, and then my other, part of my afternoon rhythm is to fold the laundry. Part of my evening rhythm is to put the laundry away.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's really, and it's to the point now where, again, with the rhythm, it's so interesting because laundry used to be a major pain point for me.
Mm-hmm.
And to the point now where it's not perfect, but my husband knows the rhythm, my kids know,
Yeah.
it's just part of our life.
Yeah.
And we don't get the massive piles, eh, usually, right?
Yeah.
Not
Right.
always.
Life is life.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay. And so, okay. When you talk about your morning grounding and you say, if I don't do it, like something's off, what what would prompt you to not do it? Like, what is something that goes on that just you don't get up for it, or I assume you do this before your family wakes up.
Yeah, typically, so usually what would prompt not doing it is either me sleeping in or not feeling well
Hmm.
or having something else, which this rare, I don't even know if this has ever happened, but like, or having something else, well, actually, having like something else to
Like a
do that.
6 a.m. flight or
Exactly,
something. Yeah.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
All right. And I'm up now, and I'm gonna curious now. What time do you go to bed and what time do you wake up?
Yeah, so that's really funny because I'm a total grandma and I could literally easily go to bed at like 8:30. But usually it's like 9, and if
Hmm.
I need so much sleep. I go to bed usually right after my kids, and I wake up. That's the thing. I don't wake up super early. I used to. That's the other thing. The other part of the morning rhythm. I was like, well, I need to get my workout in and do a little work and squeeze all these things into the morning. And I
Hmm.
tried that and it didn't work for me because even though I go to bed early, I still, again, need a lot of sleep. So I figured out kind of my happy place is about 6:30 to wake up.
Okay.
And so usually my kids will wake up ish with me, but
Hmm.
they're at an age now, the beauty
Yeah.
of them, right? They can do their own thing for
Yeah.
like a good half hour.
Yeah. They're not gonna burn the house
Yeah.
down. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what
Okay.
it is. Yeah.
Because one thing and I'm curious now, just what you think of this. You know, I don't like to get up early. Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't like to go to bed early. I get myself to a point where I'm starting to notice now where it's about maybe every 5 to 6 weeks, I have a night where I go to bed at 7 o'clock. And it's because I just get myself to a point where I'm staying up late, waking up with the kids. Like it just, it comes to a head and I
Yep.
have to
Yep.
just shut down. Um, but for example, I think it was last Wednesday or last Friday, the night before, I went to bed at 8:30. And that was like crazy. Like that's not my world. That's not
Yeah.
our house dynamic. That's nothing. I'm usually just getting the kids down at that point. And
Right.
um but the next day, I got up when my alarm went off, did maybe 45 minutes of stuff
Mhm.
before I had to get the kids moving, felt rested enough to actually execute the calendar that I had planned for myself. And I was so happy, but I was also like a little confused. I'm like, do I have to go to bed at 8:30 in order to make
Mm.
this happen for myself? Because I don't think that that's realistic for me. I feel very much like, again, in this season, my day is not my own for the most part. Like, so that time after they go to bed is so precious to me.
Yeah.
And it's also usually, the time that my husband and I have together.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, like I don't, I'm on one hand, I have a conversation like this and I'm like, okay, like, new
Yeah.
systems, new morning reset, new morning, I'm
All the
all,
things.
yeah, I'm all jazzed and wanting to do it.
Yeah.
And then I go actually walk out this door back into
Yeah.
reality. And
Yeah.
it's like, I'm not going to bed what I think is early enough to do the things that I want to do in the morning. But then if I don't do it in the morning, when am I doing it?
Yeah.
And then I go, should I just like become a complete reverse person where I like work at 11 o'clock at night, but I'm so like fried by then. Like, I don't know, Sarah. I don't
Yeah,
know what to
no.
do.
What you're saying makes total sense, and I've struggled with that honestly. The for me figuring out, because the I want to go to bed early, and then I am sacrificing some quality time with my husband, right?
Mm.
Like where
So he
and
doesn't go
so
to bed at the same time.
no, he doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that. So it's almost always in life, right? That give and take.
Yeah.
Um, and I've struggled with that. I've tried to make myself into a stay up later person, and that did not work. That
Yeah.
did not work. So I guess what I would, and there's no right answer, right?
I
But
know.
it's so good to like, that's such a good, I feel like everyone listening will relate on some level, like one way or another. And so this idea of one, I will say, um, can you even, it's like kind of that all or nothing mentality, like trying to get away from that. Like I have to
Mm.
be all a full on morning person or a full on nighttime person. Maybe just move the needle a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Just like a little bit, and the needle in the direction of going to bed just a little bit earlier,
Yeah.
and then getting up a little bit earlier. But also in that same vein, if that feels good, like try that
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
see. And then the second thing I would say is this idea of, okay, so getting super clear on what are those things you did when you woke up in the morning, specifically that made you feel really good, ready for
Mm-hmm.
the day, that you enjoyed that. And then can you make those simple? Can you make those just a little bit less time? And I think a lot of times we overestimate this idea of how long something's going to take us,
Totally. Yeah.
right? And then
Mm-hmm.
and that we have to do, if we're going to plan our day, we have to sit down for 20 minutes and go, or if we're going to have a work block, then it has to be an hour work block. Why can't it be a 20-minute, even just work block, get one really big task done,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like what would set you up for a good day? And then how can you simplify that and fit that in to your situation and your reality?
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I had an interview with Caitlin Soule recently. She's a little less of a hot mess mom. And we
Oh,
were
that's funny.
talking about, you know, we were talking about like showing up at school drop off looking like put together versus rolled out of bed. And I was saying the same thing I'm saying to you. I'm learning now I'm a
Yeah.
very much like my brain wants to think in all or nothing. It
Mhm.
wants to think in black and white when it comes to myself.
Yeah.
Everyone else, I'll give you all the gray area in the world. But myself, I want black and white. And she's like, why do you have to be the mom that looks good at pickup or the mom that's a hot mess? Like some days you're going to look good and some days you're going to look like you just rolled out of
Yes.
bed. Like you can do both. And I'm like,
Yes.
oh,
Oh, yes. That is so good. And you're so right. This all or nothing mentality, we often give other people so much more grace. Not
yes.
often. So, not, I guess often, not all the time, but very often
Yeah.
than we
Yeah.
give ourselves. And I was literally the mom. I'm just laughing because I literally went in my leopard pajamas to drop off today. So, and I don't have to get out of the car, but I'm like,
Yes.
maybe at some point I would, you never know what happens. You might, but I was that mom. I was like,
Yeah.
you guys love me. I
I
am
know.
not embarrassing.
It's so wild to me. Like, I have to get out of the car because she's 4.
Okay, yeah.
And, I remember her first days. I was like, oh my God, I got to put
Right.
makeup on. I
Of
like did
course.
my hair, did the whole thing. Now, oh my God, I feel like I have catfished this entire group of like parents and teachers. There
Oh,
was a
that's
day, I
hilarious.
kid you not, about a month ago, I had an on-camera interview. So I actually had to pick her up in makeup and hair and this and that. Her teacher didn't recognize me to send her out the door.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that
Yep.
would be me too. I say,
Yep.
oh my goodness, but like that would be me.
She
Yes.
was like, I didn't see you. I was like,
It's you.
sure, I'm standing right here. Oh my gosh.
That's so good. So
Yeah.
relatable. Oh my goodness.
Okay. All right. So, okay. I have to like bring back now. Your core 4. Did we do
Hmm.
that? We didn't do that yet.
Oh, yeah,
No.
no.
Okay. Okay. Let's do core 4 because this is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, and so this is kind of this idea of the daily rhythms. The more I started getting honing in on what are the things, and like I think I mentioned that I'm big on energy management and not just time, right? Yes, blocking your time, figuring out your tasks, it's all important, but knowing your capacity in each day and knowing where you're at physically, mentally, emotionally,
Mhm.
spiritually, knowing where you're at is so important so that you can align the things you're trying to do every day with where you're actually at. Because if
Mhm.
we're trying, so I guess the core 4 came from those figuring out, okay, what are kind of my non-negotiables for me personally that make me feel at the end of the day like this was a good day.
Mhm.
And when I move my body, when I nourish my body, whether that's with learning something new, because growth is a core value of mine, so these really come out of too
Mm.
the, your core values, really everything stems from it when you kind of look at it that way. But nourish, it could be with food, but and also I struggle with habits sometimes, this idea, or and goals, struggle with that, with I guess my personality of like trying saying I'm going to do this and this and this many times, and then if I don't, I failed. Like,
Right.
what is that? Right, I
Right.
get it, and some people thrive that from that. That's just not how I thrive, because then I say it's that all or nothing. Then I'm like, well, I didn't do it all, so I might as well scrap the whole thing.
Mhm.
So the core 4, again, it's this idea of, okay, I want to do something to move my body.
Mhm.
It could be a literally like a morning stretch.
Mhm.
Usually it's not that little, but like that could check the box. I moved, a 5-minute walk. Nourish. Okay, I added spinach to my smoothie. I read one chapter in a personal development book. I listened to a podcast, whatever that is.
Mhm.
Rest. And this is a big one. So, resting, it can mean so many different things, right? But this idea of, did I have white space in my day? Did I take a
Mhm.
minute to breathe, do deep breathing? Did I connect back to what I actually need? Did I
Mhm.
sit down for a minute and not also while I'm folding laundry, doing all the other things? Whatever that might mean, rest will look different each day. All of these will. And then connect. I realized too, I could easily, scarily go through a day without really talking with my husband. Like,
Mhm.
right? Like you're like
Mhm.
going parallel, and
Mhm.
you're, or even your kids, just your day can so easily get away from you and me. And I realized on those days where I intentionally had asked, how was your day? Where I intentionally connected, looked them in the eye. It could literally be 3 minutes, 5 minutes. We do dinners together. So that's kind of that built-in connection time. But those 4 things for me are my non-negotiables, that if I can kind of check those off, hit those in some way, form, shape, then I feel good. Then I
Mhm.
feel like it was a good day. So I think those are good general ones, but I also, as you can probably tell just from everything I share, make your own, right?
Yeah.
Like create your own core 4, core whatever, your own daily non-negotiables, to say when my head hits the pillow at night, this was a good day. What are
Mhm.
those things for you?
Mhm. And if someone's listening, meaning me, and like I was saying, like I want file folders for my brain, like all of this is is that how you've organized your planner? Like all of this is in the planner, and like because immediately I need to write everything down. Like
Right.
I'm feeling, I know the idea is to make our lives easier and simplify. But as we were saying before you start, it feels overwhelming and
Right.
it feels almost like a lot to remember. Like,
Mhm.
what's my AM reset? What's my PM? What's my value? What's my
Totally.
this? What part of my flow am I in? Like, because I could see even for myself, my my I don't know if it would be a rhythm or a season or what, but like I have very the about week to 10 days before my period is like
Mhm.
I'm a different person.
Yep.
And so I could see there being, changes needed around that time. And so it's like, but I need to be able to, how do I track it all? How do I like
how do I organize
Yeah.
all of this? You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
totally, totally. Well, I will say, so yes, I think the planner is helpful. And building out, I will say at this point in the conversation, right, it is helpful to kind of think through your planning toolbox.
Okay.
So your toolbox, your tools that help you to organize all the things we just talked about.
Okay.
For me, that is my Google Calendar.
Okay.
I use Trello, which is a project online project management system. There's also an app, and my planner, my physical planner.
Okay.
I use all those things in a different way, right?
Mhm.
So for me, so the Google Calendar is obvious, right? And it's a shared one. So it's just the schedules, the set times, appointments, all those things.
Mhm.
That's like the easy part. And then with the planner, that is that visioning, the core values. It's in there, like I said, every 90
Okay.
days. It's just prompts you to go through the values, your vision, your goals for the 90 days, recreate the rhythms, and then it's really, so I don't have like the core four in the
Okay.
planner, but it's really, this is where then I would use, so that's kind of that piece of it, that big picture. And then where I use Trello is for my more like task management. And like you were saying, literally when you were saying, I think before we hit record, it was this, it just, when you walk into a room, like all these things bombard you. And for me, it's like constant. And there's even, I think, those like the reels where it's like this running, it's the running to-do list, right? It's the
Mhm.
constant things that are bombarding you. So I have a brain dump list in Trello, and it's all the things. It's grocery list. It's all like, this has to be fixed. I walked into this room and, oh, we need to buy a bigger size shoe for my kid. Like,
Mhm.
da 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 da, list, I'll go on. And then, and this is probably even a whole other, not again, it's a whole other kind of conversation. But in Trello, that's where I will go through then and I edit that brain dump. That is not my to do list. That is just getting all the things out of your brain. So this is where, if you're picturing the file folders, that's my Trello,
Okay.
literally. And because it's so visual,
Yeah.
I highly recommend it. I'm actually thinking, just a little scoop here, I'm thinking about doing like a Trello course, because I feel
Okay.
like it's so, that's the thing that I feel like I was missing, because I love physical planners, but I also felt like I couldn't figure out how to like fit all the things. And
Yeah.
Trello catches all the things.
Yeah.
And then I use that for like the monthly, the weekly. And then I use my planner for, okay, this is my day today. And I
Okay.
block it out and I say, these are my top three things today. So I'm not looking at all the things, the brain dump, the things I
Right.
have to do this week. I'm just focusing on, what do I have to do today? So hopefully by the time you've gone through the entire process, you've gotten clear on your core values, you know where your energy's at. And all of this, again, takes, just, it is a process, but I would, you could even just write down the process, so you're not trying to think through it, right? Like you're
Yeah.
like, this is what I will eventually, and the more you practice it, it really does become like a second nature. Like, okay, let me just check in with my energy. It's not something you need to necessarily write down to remember. It eventually becomes, right, part of where just your
Yes.
connection. But
Yes.
you can, and that's where
Yeah.
I keep my rhythms in Trello. So
Okay.
my weekly rhythms and my daily rhythms, and then I have, so it's a whole thing, right? It's like, but this took me a very long time to build out. That's what I
Mm.
just want to encourage. And that knowing that it's possible, kind of seeing the big picture and then starting small. I
Okay.
know it's easier said than done, but I promise it
Yeah.
works.
No, I like Trello. I use Trello for
Okay.
the podcast,
Yep.
but I never thought to use it
Oh
for my
yeah.
personal life.
Life management. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and it's nice. It is very visual, and you can like just drag things.
Yep.
Like I'm picturing
Exactly.
if you're walking around your house and your son needs new shoes, it's like you just move it to to like a
Yep.
shopping list, or you move it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Um. What was I going to say to you? Oh, and the only other thing that came to mind is, I was always a pen. I'm always a pen and paper girl.
Yeah.
I like pen and paper,
Mhm.
and I always, my planners in school and shortly after, before I had like super intense life responsibilities. Like I lived by it. But you know
Right.
what is like the dumbest thing that happens to me now is that if I'm downstairs and it's upstairs, I won't go get it. And if
Right.
it's upstairs and I'm downstairs, I won't go get it. So yeah, maybe just having it on my phone is
Yeah.
like I use the Google Calendar, and it's funny, I do a lot of that for work, but I don't transition.
Interesting, right? Maybe
Yes.
just giving that giving that a
Yes,
try.
Sarah. Yes, it's very
It's
interesting.
interesting. No, I'm
It's
just
so
kidding.
interesting, Sarah. Um, okay. All right. I think is there any other like major your course. Like this is how we could start to
Yeah.
this would be a really just organized way to go boom, boom, boom and take
Right.
us through all of this. Yeah. Okay. Tell us about the course.
That's right. That's basically and it's right currently. It is still, I have, you can hop on the wait list, is
Okay.
where it's at, because I am redoing it. I am upgrading it, up leveling it, and just kind of filling in some gaps. So it is basically, like we said, the entire process. It's online, self-paced, which is really helpful for busy moms. And then
Yeah.
also a community where you can connect and ask questions on Facebook. So the core values, creating, getting clear on that, how to do an energy audit, introducing you to Trello, literally how to create your rhythms. We didn't really touch on it, but this ideal week, and that's once you create your rhythms, where do they live in your week? So again, it's kind of,
Oh my God, that's major.
that's right. So
Yeah.
when are you doing your meal planning? When
I
are
don't
you
know.
doing, right? How are you doing it? Right? That's the rhythm. I know. That's what the course is. And again, a meal planning is another was a pain point for me, and is something I hear often. And it's just the perfect example of a weekly rhythm. It's something we all have to do for
Hmm.
the most part, all of us, right? We have to
Hmm.
feed our kids. And there's so many different ways to do it. Everybody's telling us all these different ways. But if you can take creating the rhythms, and it's, the step by step, so you literally design the rhythm, who's doing it, when are you doing it, what are all the different pieces, put them together. And again, I think the more I'm saying this, I'm like, it's so worth it to put in this effort, because it is effort, it is energy, it is time
Yeah.
on the front end to build these out. And then truly you will get to the point where you're just tweaking them, and you don't necessarily have to recreate the wheel,
Hmm.
right? You're
Hmm.
tweaking them. Okay, now I have teenagers. Okay, now they're out of the house, right? Like,
Yeah.
that'll
Yeah.
be a while. But
Yeah.
so you're right. That's what the course is. It's an organized way to help you kind of walk through the process. You'll have access to it, lifetime access to it. So you're like, oh, wait, I need a refresher on rhythms.
Hmm.
Go back in, listen to the module. And it's just super, super simple, as you
Hmm.
can imagine. And just hopefully user friendly. Because I love courses.
Hmm.
So I created it kind of from that perspective of what would I want.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, your podcast,
Yes.
does a lot of that too. I mean,
Yes.
it's
There's a
very digestible and very you know, and it's very organized. It's very like do
yeah,
this, do
thank you.
that, do this, do that,
Yeah.
so it's good. So Eddie,
Awesome.
anything about your podcast that you want to make sure you get into this conversation?
Thank you. Yeah. So what I've been doing, and I've really been enjoying, is I do, like, you were on the pod, or you're going to be on the podcast. So I'm actually, where we're at now, I do interviews, is what I'm trying to say. I do interview episodes, which I so enjoy, just like this, where you can kind of bounce things off. And so I bring on experts like organizing, time management,
Hmm.
right? And health too, all the different areas, because it's that holistic picture
Hmm.
of peace and productivity. So
Hmm.
it's all the different areas that are helping you with mom life. And then also the solo episodes mixed in, where I break down all the different areas of the process that have helped me.
Hmm.
So whenever you're listening to this, I will be taking a little break for summer, but I know podcasts, that's the beauty of them. They live on.
Hmm.
And then I'll be back. And yeah, I mean, it's my favorite thing about the business. I think I can safely say that I love connecting with amazing women like you,
Hmm.
and being a podcast listener myself. Again, I know I really appreciate that platform. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And lastly, before I let you go, any, final word of wisdom or piece of advice or something you want people to really walk away from this conversation hearing and knowing that someone that's not even begun to think about this, and basically me, someone that's like me, that is like in the
Yeah.
weeds and wanting to get started and
Yeah.
feeling it.
Yeah. I would say, well, okay, there's two things. The first thing, and I forgot to mention this, but a big thing to just kind of get over that that initial hump whenever you need motivation, like in the moment, this idea of setting a like a 15-minute timer is game changer. So this is just very practical. Like when you enter a room, when you have a lot of times too, I think, and I've heard this from moms where you have time, you have a block and you're like, okay, I'm free, and you are paralyzed because you could go 30 million different directions.
Yeah.
So pick a direction, set a timer, and just go. And the other second thing I was going to say is get a mantra. My mantra is keep it simple. Surprise, surprise. So, but you can borrow that one.
Yeah.
Or as you're doing, okay, how can I keep it simple in this moment? My brain is going crazy. Maybe you need to sit down and do a quick brain dump of all of the possible ways you could go with this 20-minute block that you have, or 15 minutes you have. And then pick one, keep it simple. The more you do that, it's like retraining your brain to say, we're going to focus. We're going to stay on this. And then just knowing, I think that's the thing, knowing that we are not supposed to do it all. We're not supposed to finish all the things in a day or in a week or really ever, because life is just, and unfortunately, it's like embracing that truth, right? That we can do so much, but we can't do all the things.
Yeah. All right. All right, Sarah.
Oh, this is
Lots
so fun
to think about. Thank you so much for your time. And I now I feel like I need to like go back to episode 1 and just like start all over. But anyway, I really appreciate it. And thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was awesome.
So, the phrase that comes to mind every time I think of this conversation, and now after listening to it again, is taking back my power. Something I think, feel, and actually say out loud a lot is, I'm drowning in housework. It never ends. There is always something to do in every room of my house, whether it's tidying or actually cleaning or both. And I am completely that person that cannot relax or honestly even do anything else until the main spaces I live in are clear. For example, just tonight, I said, hey, you know what? I got to write the intro and outro for Sarah Dalton's show. Let me go do that. Oh, but wait, let me clean the kitchen first. I actually felt a mental block of there's no way that I could actually think clearly enough to write this intro and outro and record it when the kitchen is this messy. One must be done before the other. And that is very much feeling like my house controls me rather than me controlling my house. Yeah. So, all right. I want to encourage you to listen to Sarah's podcast and take a look at her website because she covered a lot of information here today. And at least if you're like me, you'll want to go as step by step as possible. So, get it? Start with your core values, then identify your life buckets, and then move on to creating those rhythms. And remember, these aren't written in stone. Like Sarah said, every 30 days or so, check in and see if anything needs to be tweaked. I'm telling you, I love her podcast. It's really digestible and easy to understand, and it's wonderful. And it's actually on pause for the summer, so this is truly the best time to deep dive and catch up before she kicks back up again. All right, so before we go our separate ways, I have to remind you of the amazingness that is Modern Mom Style Box. Tara Clark, creator of the popular Instagram account Modern Mom Probs, and guest number 3 on this show, launched this amazing new clothing rental service. Modern Mom Style Box makes it easy to wear new clothes all month long without any stress or commitment. From seasonal staples to statement pieces, rent unlimited looks for just one flat fee of $60 a month. Take it from me, you're going to want this. The link and details are in the show notes. So thank you, Sarah, for the therapy session. Thank you for listening. I'll get you next time. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Sass Says is a production of Luann Nigara, Inc. This podcast is meant to be educational and not meant to replace professional therapy or professional medical attention. To learn more about today's show and what's new in my world, head over to sasssays.com. Thanks so much. Talk later.